On this edition of Independent Sources, Fad or Revolution? How an internet and social media campaign fueled more Nigerian youth to take part in the country's recent election.
Homeless in Manhattan. Why are more LGBT immigrant youth finding themselves on the streets?
And Shinto, a faith steeped in Japanese culture, is finding followers here in New York.
Welcome to Independent Sources. I'm Abby Ashola.
And I'm Diana Ravinka. Until the chaos now gripping the country erupted, Nigerians recently lauded a milestone: 4 consecutive elections with not a single soldier's weapon being fired.
An equally significant aspect of the election was the youth turnout, spurred on by a similar social media and internet campaign that sparked the flames of the Egyptian ouster of former President Hosni Mubarak.
I sat down with Omoyele Shawari of the website SaharaReporters.com and Nosa Garrick, founder of the website voteorquench.org. We talked about the election and how technology could be empowering Nigeria's youth and making the government more accountable. Nigerian youth make about 70% of the country's population. Nosa, tell us about your website, voteorquenchnigeria.org, and how you helped mobilize the youth in this election.
Well, the website is actually called voteorquench.org, but it's what we did was basically take a social media effort and kind of mimic what we've seen done around the world and push for people to go online and encourage their friends. We had an initiative called If Niger Votes, and using Facebook, Twitter, and BBM, BlackBerry Messenger, we had people kind of raise awareness about the registration period by tweeting different scenarios of what could be possible if Nigerians actually went out and voted. So that was one of the initiatives we did. We also worked with other organizations in putting together a youth debate where we were calling into question the issues that are facing the youth, which go unaddressed with each election. And so that was kind of our way of making the young people feel as though they belong to the country for once, and making them understand the importance of their vote in the election.
And how does the number of registered young people compare this year to the numbers in previous years?
Well, an unofficial number that's been thrown around is 65% of the electorate was under the age of 30, which is huge. And in this election, there were about 73 million people registered compared to previous elections, and at least 50 million people voted. In the last election, there was about 25 million people who voted. So that's like that's 100% raise from the 2007 elections, where a lot of apathy was felt towards the election.
Omoyele, Nosa mentioned the use of social media to mobilize the youth. How big a role did it play in this election?
There's no question about it. This is, in my own opinion, the social media election, in the first in Nigeria's history where social media became part and parcel of the electoral process. As a matter of fact, any of the candidates that did not have a Twitter account or didn't have a Facebook page were not regarded as serious. So yes, it was a Facebook election.
Nosa, your website actually, when you first open the homepage, you see a title, Tunisia and Egypt, Lesson Learned, Nigeria Should Revolt and Vote. How much influence did the uprisings in Northern Africa and Middle East and the Facebook revolution, how many have called it, in those countries played in Nigeria?
Well, I think that a lot of people were looking at Nigeria for some sort of imitation effort where people would take it to the streets, but unlike those countries, they were seeking for an actual democratic election. We're talking about people who were in place for 30 years. This was our election. And so with this, we were not saying that we're going to take it to the streets and revolt. We were revolting by casting our votes. And you could see in several parts of the country where the ruling party usually had a stronger stake. They lost that stake in those parts, and other parties came in and actually won those sections. So I believe that the revolution happened in a sense where we didn't vote for people who hadn't served us in the way we believed that they should have.
Omoyele, SaharaReporters.com, you've encouraged people in Nigeria to use their flip cams, their phones, to report back to you. What kind of reporting have you gotten?
Due to that strategy, we were able to stream the elections, last two elections, live on Sahara Reporters. And we got a lot of videos, a lot of photos, text as requested by people. And they religiously followed our instructions to get information to us in time. I'll get to give you an example. The first election was supposed to happen about 3 weeks ago. It fell apart. The material, there was a huge, massive logistic failure. It was through our website, according to the Independent Electoral Commission in Nigeria, that they found out first that the election had failed before they got, of course, feedback from their staff on the ground. Because people were texting and saying, we can't see the election materials, we can't see election officers, so it's 12 noon here, we can't find anybody. And that election was canceled because there was so much report that was coming on our website and from people all over Nigeria. Yes, they have been doing very, very well with regards to that. And last week also, we streamed the presidential election live as well. And people were calling in, sending texts, they were sending in photos, and we had tools on the website that allows for mass participation that were utilized by all of our people all over Nigeria and beyond.
The international media has largely reported that the elections were free and fair, and I know that you do take issue with that, but has the use of technology like flip cameras and cell phones has changed the way that government and election officials have reacted during this election?
Well, definitely. It was such that even the irregularities that were that we picked out in the election happened outside of the eyes of the social media, and we learned the lesson from that, because most of the irregularities, which is the padding of the numbers in 9 states of the Federation in the South and the South and the Southeast, happened during collation when all of the social media people had left. But some of the things we had, which was amazing, is that people took to even taping as they were thumb printing and stuffing ballots. And we had those videos on our website that further buttressed the fact that the elections were with a lot of irregularities. And just as the international media was saying it was free and fair, we didn't think it might have been fair. That's what a lot of people are saying, that maybe this would have been the outcome. I disagree with that, but it was not a free election, definitely not.
Nosa, in your view, how did the election go?
Well, I think that because people had phones and could report what they saw, at the polling units where the ballots were counted in front of the people, yes, there was no way for people to kind of pad the results there. A lot of things happened behind the scenes that not everyone is aware of. Once the ballots left the polling units and once they arrived to the collation centers. I think that people are becoming more or realizing more that they can no longer rig elections right in front of the people. There were times before where election results would be announced while people were still voting. But now there's more of a respect for the people, I guess, where we're not rigging in front of them. But, I wouldn't go as far as saying that it was completely rigging free.
And Omoyele, just in the 10 seconds that we have left, how do you compare the way that this election was reported on and the election overall with the 2007 much contested election?
Well, the great thing about this is that there was an opportunity for an alternative medium or media to report on the election. If it was before, the moment CNN and the rest of them called an election free and fair, it was over. No alternative voice to say otherwise. But now, CNN could say it, but people still have other people to listen to. And this is how to expand the frontiers of justice, electoral justice in any country, that you have citizens who are watching and reporting these issues as they're happening live. That's very important, and I think it was a crucial issue in this election.
Omoyele Shawari and Nosa Garrick, thank you very much for being in studio with us today.
Thank you for bringing me.
Thank you.
Still to come on Independent Sources, LGBT immigrant youth struggle with homelessness in the city.
Before that, Jessica Cordemanche has some other news.
Thanks, Vianora. Here's a look at some headlines from the ethnic media. AfricanNews.com reports that a judicial commission of inquiry will be created following the recent violence in Nigeria. What started out as a peaceful election day soon erupted into a wave of deadly violence when the results showed incumbent Goodluck Jonathan would be returning to power. The Nigerian president stated that the disturbances would no longer be tolerated and ordered the deployment of security forces to troubled parts of the country. From the Jewish Forward, a possible reversal in a milestone sexual abuse case in Brooklyn. Baruch Mordecai Lebovitz was convicted in March 2010 on 8 counts of sexual abuse. The case was significant for the Haredi community since it typically does not report such crimes to secular authorities. Samuel Kellner is now charged with having bribed a witness to testify against Lebovitz. Kellner, whose son was one of the victims of the sexual abuse case, allegedly paid a second victim $10,000 to falsely testify in front of a grand jury. India Abroad reports that Muslim, South Asian, and Sikh Americans are still facing heavy discrimination. Assistant Attorney General Tom Perez told a Senate panel that there is still a steady stream of violence and discrimination targeting those minorities. He was speaking at the hearing on the Civil Rights of American Muslims, which was organized by Senator Richard Durbin. It comes on the heels of last month's hearing held by New York Representative Peter King, which was called The Extent of Radicalization of American Muslims and the Community's Response. That hearing was slammed as being anti-Muslim. From the Amsterdam News, the issue of depression and mental health in the Black community is coming to the forefront following the death of a woman who drove herself and her children into the Hudson River. LaShonda Armstrong drove a minivan carrying her 4 children into the river following a fight with her boyfriend. The eldest child, who was 10, was the only one able to swim back to the surface. The newspaper says that 63% of African Americans view depression as a personal weakness, and over 90% do not seek any help to treat it. It also says that in this case, the pressures of early motherhood and the lack of outside help in dealing with her issues likely led to Armstrong's nervous breakdown. On a lighter note, Hispanics across the tri-state area traveled to Fifth Avenue to celebrate Easter together. El Diario La Prensa reports that the Manhattan Easter Parade did not include fleets. The attractions were the people themselves. Some families had built colorful accessories for the festivities. Other people took the opportunity to mix business with pleasure, like a 22-year-old Guatemalan man who made $200 selling cotton candy. Those were just a few headlines from the ethnic media. Back to Abby and Vianora in the studio.
Thanks, Jessica. It's estimated that about 40% of homeless youth in New York City identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. About 15% of that number immigrated to this country.
Many of them are driven from their homes by uncompromising parents who see their sexual orientation as unacceptable behavior.
I sat down with reporter Vaughn Diaz and Mike Bethke of the transitional housing program called Green Chimneys. We spoke about the issue and how the organization is trying to help immigrants and other LGBT homeless youth. Vaughn, you recently did a story on gay immigrant youth struggling with homelessness in New York City. Based on your reporting, just how serious is this issue in New York?
Based on my reporting, I think that there are definitely other communities in New York City that are disproportionately affected by homelessness, African American youth, Latino youth, but immigrant youth seem to also be extremely affected by this because of things like poverty, lack of support services in their community, and cultural homophobia and religion.
Do you know any of the numbers, the statistics?
Based on the last count of homeless youth, I believe that I believe the statistic is that each night 3,400 youth are homeless in New York City, about 15% of whom were born outside of the US mainland. And within that population, up to 40% are LGBTQ.
Okay. And Jack, the organization you work for, Green Chimneys, helps to assist homeless gay youth or LGBT youth. Talk a little bit about the program and what you do.
The program is a transitional living program where we assist young people ages 17 to 21 to acquire the skills necessary to make them more independent. So we assist with life skills, we do counseling with our young people, we help them to get job skills, help them with education in a secure environment, in a secure place where they can live and be comfortable for 18 months while they're pursuing those goals.
We actually have a clip. I recently spoke with Adriel Grant, a 20-year-old immigrant from Guyana who's been living in one of the Green Chimneys apartments since last July. He talked to us about how he ended up on the streets.
Okay, this is where I live, and it's like awesome.
Adriel Grant calls this modest Harlem apartment home. But just a few months ago, he was sleeping in a New York City park. His mother forced him out of the house after she confronted him about being gay. Almost a month later, he was referred to Green Chimneys, a transitional living program that assists homeless youth. Green Chimneys is housing Adriel in this apartment temporarily. How do you feel about living here?
I feel like I'm home, in a way.
Really?
Yeah,
Why?
because it's so comfortable and it gives you a chance to like be free.
Adriel says his mother was always a strict parent, even before they immigrated to the United States from Guyana. One of the things she constantly stressed, he says, was her intolerance for gay people. So when did you realize that you knew you couldn't tell your mom that you were gay?
Since I was small, because when I was back home, just growing up around the, my environment, my culture, I know it wasn't right to be gay, or if you were, there was going to be stiff consequences.
Do you talk to your mom at all?
No, because when I left there, she changed her number, and then she was moving. And I don't know where she's living right now. And I don't have her number.
How do you feel about what happened overall? Are you upset? Are you angry? Are you over it?
I felt that she could like handle it better, because I see other parents that like maybe like accept their kids for who they are, and they may not accept the lifestyle that the kids live, but they still like accept them for who they are, and try to like work with the kid to find like common ground.
So what's life like for you here at Green Chimneys?
Life is okay. Life is great. I have a place to stay, rest my hair, and so I don't have to be on the streets. And they help me out a lot in like getting into school and looking for jobs and stuff like that. So it's very helpful in there, and I'm grateful for reaching this. This is my room.
He's grateful for the help because the stability has helped him refocus on his dream of becoming either a fashion model or a math teacher. But he can't help being nervous about what lies ahead because he will have to leave this apartment in 9 months. Are you afraid?
Yes, but I don't know why. I should be happy for the future because I have so much things that I want to accomplish, but it's going to take time. Wow, he still seems pretty fragile. Vaughn, you also spoke to Adriel and some other people in his situation. What is the common thread with their stories?
I think that the common thread is that, you know, as Adriel said, he knew when he was very young that he probably was not going to come out to his mother as a gay man. And I think that a lot of these young people come to the US, especially places like New York that are very open and accepting of LGBT people, and they feel like they have an opportunity to come out and be with a community for the first time, and sometimes their parents just can't accept that. And unfortunately that leads sometimes to young people being homeless.
Wow. And Jack, through your experience working with these teens, do immigrants face more of a challenge than non-immigrants?
All these young people are facing tremendous challenges. The different challenges that I think the immigrant youth face is a great disconnect from their families' cultures. You know, they've come from places that are very different than New York. You know, in Adriel's case, he actually came from Georgia first. He you know, and there was some greater family ties there, and then the further separation with coming into New York, and the anonymity, and you know, though there's a lot of people here, it can be very isolating. So I think that the culture shock is tremendous. Trying to pick their way through the nuances of our social establishments and not really being a part of it, coming to it with a very, very different ingrained cultural norms.
Yeah. Well, the program at Green Chimneys is 18 months long. So what if, you know, let's say Adriel doesn't find a job when his time is up? What happens?
Well, the options are pretty limited. With Section 8 being closed, there's no housing for him there. That's a possibility to get him housing with supportive housing, though without substance abuse or mental illness, little chance of him actually getting into that sort of housing. There is an extensive adult shelter system that he could become a part of. There's very little for young people who age out of transitional living programs at age 21 and get thrown into the adult system.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot of them end up back on the streets. And I know in your report you mentioned that some of them end up selling their bodies. Can you talk a little bit about that part?
Sure. Well, one of the other young people that I interviewed, Juan Valdez, became homeless when he was 16, and he was living in Florida. And after a few months living on the street and hopping from couch to couch, he felt that he had to turn to sex work in order to make some kind of money for himself. Unfortunately, Juan is still homeless. He's in a different shelter program than Green Chimneys, but and no longer has to, you know, fall on sex work as an option. But he definitely had struggled with that, and has found it really difficult to find the kind of support he needs to move out of the shelter system.
Pretty tough topic. Vaughn Diaz, Jack Bethke, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
When we come back, how a Japanese faith is finding more followers here in the city.
You realize that 49 million Americans struggle with hunger? That's 1 out of every 6 Americans.
These people are around us every day. They're our friends, they're our coworkers, their kids go to school with our kids.
Sometimes we're not even aware that they're struggling. This problem is closer than you think, but so is the solution.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
And finally from us tonight, although you might not think of New York City as the most religious place in America, many New Yorkers identify themselves as being affiliated with some form of religion or faith.
One faith drawing in new followers is Shinto. The religion is deeply rooted in Japanese life and has some unique practices that set it aside from other belief systems. Jessica Cordemarche tells us more.
I decided to participate.
6,700 miles away from Japan, Reverend Masafumi Nakashini is trying to help.
As a Shinto priest, I'm really powerless. But even I'm powerless, I have to do something. So we decided to have this ritual.
Since 2008, the Reverend has been working in the U.S. with the International Shinto Foundation, whose aim is to promote the study and understanding of Shinto internationally.
We're going to perform the Shinto prayer.
Tonight, the focus is on the victims of the March 11th earthquake that devastated northeast Japan.
This is presentation of offerings.
Shinto is a form of worship indigenous to Japan. It traces back to the 7th century. Unlike Judeo-Christian traditions, it has no official text, no founder, and no fixed doctrines. Instead, it has to do with being in harmony with nature and with the prayer to spiritual beings and powers called kami.
Bow twice and clap my hand twice, then bow once again. That's the basic style of Shinto prayer.
It is a system of rituals more than a system of beliefs. The practice includes offerings and purification rituals. Ceremonies are often used to mark important life events like marriage or periods of growth.
Japanese people go to Shinto shrines for New Year's celebration or age coming ceremony for 7, 5, 3 years old, or when they become 20 years old.
Because it is so ingrained in Japanese society and believers need not outwardly profess their faith, it is hard to narrow down official Shinto followers.
We regard almost all Japanese as a Shinto parishioner, but we don't have any regulation as a Shinto practitioners.
In Japan, the big Shinto ceremonies take place at public shrines, although many Japanese can worship at home in makeshift private shrines. The ceremony follows a very specific protocol and features strong aesthetic elements.
Firstly, I have to recite Shinto prayer for purifications. Then I purified whole of attendee, our altar, offering. Then I put our offering. Then I recite Shinto prayer. Then my co-worker Shrine Maiden perform.
The ceremony is directed at the kami. The performance, dress, and props are all intended to please the Shinto deities. Outside the Midtown office of the foundation, Shinto remains unfamiliar. Yet some New Yorkers are learning about the faith and starting to connect to it.
I love everything Japanese, the food. I'm a big fan of sake. It's my favorite thing in the world, really. The history, everything about Japan. And I just thought it'd be interesting to see.
So far, I haven't been disappointed. I've really found a spiritual connection to this religion. And in many ways, I wish it were more well-known in the States.
Because tonight's ceremony is for a special cause, the room is filled with more than just the usual parishioners. Some are there for information, some want to help, and some are just plain curious. For Reverend Nakashini, they are all welcome. Jessica Cordemarche for Independent Sources.
That's our show this week. Thanks for staying tuned.
Till next time, be independent-minded.